See, you've already gotten applause.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dan Kelly. I'm a partner with McCarter & English. I'm chair of the Federalist Society Lawyers Division for Boston, and I am pleased that this is now our 7th year where the diverse and great members of the Massachusetts Bar bring Shakespeare to the stage and discuss its legal potential. I have to begin, unfortunately, with an apology, and that's an apology on behalf of Justice Breyer, who is not here, who canceled just a few days ago, much to my chagrin. But he has a noble understudy, Chief Judge Mark Wolf, who's going to be our host tonight.
Second round of applause now. You're doing well.
Actually, Justice Breyer, was thinking, and to the extent he ever wanted to be considered for Chief Justice, he didn't want to be caught dead at a Federal Society event. So that's why. Actually, no. He was very gracious and sends his apology. And the Federal Society, this is right up our alley. It's a little bit different in terms of the types of work that we do, mostly debates and speeches. But please check out our website, fedsoc.org. It's our 25th year, and we're great to have it alive and well in Boston. Before I turn it over to Steve, I just want to explain a little bit how this is going to work. For the first hour or so, you're going to see the staged reading where our esteemed actors will participate. They are not professional actors, so please give them your indulgence. And if you're ever in a courtroom before them, you obviously want to applaud very loudly. Okay. After that's done, we'll invite Dan Kornstein and Jan Crawford-Greenberg, who is on the tarmac at National Airport, hopefully she'll be here by then, to lead the discussion. There will be no break in between. I do want to say thank my wonderful firm, McCarter & English, for its sponsorship of this event, and specifically Diane Bluestein and Dottie Moore. They're my angels. They really helped in terms of putting this together. I also want to thank the Massachusetts Bar Association for its generous sponsorship of this event. And I also want to thank, finally, the wonderful staff here of the Schubert Theater. They've been very welcoming and to us non-actors, and they're terrific. And the leader of them all, of course, is my great friend Steve Mailer, who's going to tell you a little bit about what's exciting this summer for Shakespeare. Steve. Thanks.
Hi there, I'm Steve Mailer. I'm the founding artistic director of Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, which presents an annual free production of Shakespeare on the Boston Common. We're, as you all know, a program of the City Performing Arts Center. And on behalf of its CEO, Joe Spalding, our staff, and our board, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the City Schubert Theater. We have a terrific evening ahead for you. This is one of the things I really love doing every year, because who else gets to tell gentlemen like this what to do? I mean, this is a very unusual role. But we've had great fun putting this together for you tonight. The performance, as Dan said, runs about an hour, and then there's a Q&A afterwards. It is a reading, a script and hand reading, so you'll see their music stands up here. The performers will all be seated at the upstage portion in the chairs, and then they'll come downstage for the scenes, and then they'll go back up when they're not in scenes. Measure for measure, for those of you who don't know, Dan will take you through a little bit of the plot, because it's actually a rather complicated and challenging play. Not often performed, but profoundly morally complex. Lots of layers of moral contradiction that I think is very, very fascinating and interesting for our time. And I think in terms of the legal discussion afterwards, you'll be very intrigued by the comments by the esteemed panel. I want to thank you again for coming. I also want to thank my colleagues here, Michelle Holmes and Tom Kaufman, and also the fantastic crew here at the Schubert stage for all their work, and all my colleagues at the City Performing Arts Center for their help. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Chief Judge Mark Wolf.
Good evening. When you're in court, you have to respond. Good evening. This is the first, but not the last time that I will disappoint you tonight. And as you've heard, I'm not Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. And in fact, I'm sure it's a disappointment, if not a surprise to my mother, that I'm not a Supreme Court Justice at all. But Justice Breyer is, I know, very sorry that complications at the end of the term preclude him from making this, which has been on his calendar for a long time. But it is a great pleasure for me, on behalf of my friends in the cast, to thank the Federalist Society, and particularly its impresario, Dan Kelly, who seems to be inexhaustible, for bringing us all together. And I'd also like to thank Steve Mailer. You have in the cast tonight 9 judges, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, and 3 of the most high-powered lawyers anywhere. And it takes a deft hand to get us as far as we've got. You can imagine. Steve has done that. But I particularly thank Dan and Steve for choosing Measure for Measure as the Shakespeare play to be performed. About 20 years ago, when the federal budget still had money in it, the judges of the First Circuit went off for a judicial conference. No lawyers, just the judges, and we spent an afternoon discussing this play. The play was important 20 years ago, but it's become really a profound parable of things that perplex us today. You're going to see a play that involves mechanical and merciless administration of justice. And in the past 20 years, federal judges at least, have been grappling with a regime in the criminal law of tightening sentencing guidelines and mandatory minimums that present us with a lot of vexing problems. And it's really extraordinary to me that hundreds of years ago, Shakespeare recognized these problems generically and explored them in such an intriguing way. You're going to get an overview, I understand, from Dan of this play, but you're going to see that my old friend Wayne Budd is the Duke, and he's let things go law-wise in his kingdom in Vienna. So he appoints me, Angelo, to become the judge. And this is the second place that I'm going to disappoint you, because you're going to see that I'm a cold-blooded Puritan. And I sentence to die what then a sailor, Claudio, aptly calls the Tom Brady figure. Claudio has got his girlfriend, his fiancé, pregnant, and I sentence him to death. He doesn't care for that. So he sends for his sister, sort of the Elizabeth Taylor character, naturally played by my friend and colleague Nancy Gertner, to come implore me not to execute him. And you'll see what happens. But this play, as I've thought about it, raises some very important and provocative questions that I'll share with you very briefly. I mean, who makes laws that criminalize immorality and authorizes severe sentences for them? What are the risks when the prosecutor and the judge, or prosecution and judicial function, are essentially merged? Wonder whether we give too much weight in selecting judges to people who seem like they're going to be tough on crime, and not enough to finding men and women who understand the common humanity between the judged and the judge. How much do we really want impersonal and objective judging? And ultimately, why is this play so aptly called Measure for Measure? Now, let the play begin.
Because Measure for Measure, which was subtitled at the time Knocked Up, is so rarely performed, we decided to have a couple of minutes to explain for you this ridiculously complicated plot so you can follow along. Oh, by the way, I wanted to welcome, I think there are about 10 judges from Russia who are here. Well, we'll just understand it just as well as you will, I guarantee. So, for my Russian judges, I want to say, Приветствую вас, очень хорошо мне вас здесь, в долгосрочной службе Shakespeare. Okay. This play is set in Vienna, which you might as, it doesn't matter where it is. Just think of it as sort of modern-day Las Vegas, all right? For 20 years, the laws have gone to pot. There are brothels everywhere. There's licentiousness. It's Sin City, okay? The play, Vienna is run by the Duke, who's played by Wayne Budd. And the Duke, who's a kind and benevolent man, has apparently allowed these laws to slide for 20 years. So he feels that he needs to do something about it. So what is his great plan? He decides to sneak away from the city, disguise himself as a monk, and come back and watch how his 2 deputies decide to enforce the law. Now, he has 2 deputies. They are Aeschylus, played by Doug Woodlock, and Angelo, played by Mark Wolfe. He doesn't go to Aeschylus, who is the wise, learned, gray-haired lord who's been with him forever. He goes to the stern, officious magistrate, Angelo, and tells Angelo to fix this city and enforce the law to your best discretion. He leaves, as I said, he disguised himself as a monk. So during this play, you will sometimes see Wayne Budd without a hood, and sometimes you will see him with a hood. With the hood, it's a cunning disguise, and no one recognizes him. As I say to my family when I'm watching 24, suspend, suspend. But when Wayne is wearing the hood, he's the friar, disguised as the duke, disguised the friar. When he's not wearing the hood, he's the duke. Okay? Now the plot, as Chief Judge Wolch mentioned, is that Claudio, who's a gentleman, he's a noble, he's an upstanding guy, has got his girlfriend Giulietta, who we never see, knocked up. Okay? They are engaged to be married, but they are not married, which is against the law. The able constable, played by our own Attorney General Martha Coakley, who's about as incompetent as you can imagine. I mean, her character. Arrests Claudio, and Claudio is sent to prison awaiting his death sentence. Okay? His sister, who is about to enter a convent, who's a very religious and devout person, and a virgin, Nancy Gertner, plays Isabella. Isabella is told about her brother's imminent death sentence. Isabella does not approve of the fact that her brother has been fooling around, but she decides that she will go and try to go to Angelo and plead for mercy to him. She goes to Angelo, and what does Angelo do? Angelo is surprised by the fact that he's actually attracted to this woman who's about to become a nun. And Angelo, in a feat of arbitrariness, unbeknownst to time, says, "I'll let him go if you sleep with me." Okay? So now Isabella has a tough choice, which you'll see how it plays out. Angelo, by the way, was once engaged to Mariana, who's played by Jennifer Braceras, but for some reason has decided that she's no good for him anymore. But Mariana, believe it or not, still has affections for Angelo. That's important to know. Okay? There's a whole other layer of society that's depicted by Shakespeare during this play as well, and I'll be done in 30 seconds. That's sort of the real people, the people on the street, the non-noblemen, the people who are going to the brothels and drinking the drinks. One of them, by the way, is Lucio, who is a dandy, it's played by Nat Gorton. This was typecasting. He's a romantic guy, a man about town, sort of the Brad Pitt of the cast. He seems to be everywhere. He flirts with the noble people. He also deals with the people down below. And of course, the queen of the lower echelons of society is Mistress Overdone, the queen, the great chief madam of the whorehouse in town, played by Patty Saris. Patty Saris, that is Mistress Overdone, has what she calls a tapster, who's the guy's in charge of pulling the taps and also taking the money from the customers. He's played by John Montgomery, known to tap a few himself. And Bill Lee, this is my favorite part of the casting, plays Mistress Overdone's John during this play. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Needless to say, the plot gets even more complicated, but you'll understand as you go along. So, the play begins in the hall of the Duke, in which he advises his plans to his most trusted advisors, Aeschylus and Angelo.
Aeschylus, my lord, the nature of our people, our city's institutions, and the terms for common justice, you're as pregnant in as art and practice hath enriched any that we can remember. Call hither, I say, bid come before us Angelo. What figure of us think you he will bear? For you must know, we have with special soul elected him our absence to supply, lent him our terror, trust him with our love, and given his deputation all the organs of our own power.
Always obedient to your grace's will, I come to know your pleasure.
Angelo, in our remove, Be thou at full ourself. Morality and mercy in Vienna live in thy tongue and heart. O Lascellus, though first in question, is thy secondary. Take thy commission.
Now, good my lord, let there be some more tests made of my metal before so noble and so great a figure be stamped upon it.
No more evasion. We have with a leavened and prepared choice proceeded to you. Therefore, take your honors. Our haste from hence is of so quick condition that it prefers itself and leaves unquestioned matters of needful value. Your scope is as mine own, so to enforce or qualify the laws as to your soul seems good. Give me your hand, I'll privily away. I love the people, but do not like to stage me to their eyes. Through it do well. I do not relish well their loud applause and aves vehement, nor do I think the man of safe discretion that does affect it. Fare you well.
The heavens give safety to your purposes.
Lead forth and bring you back in happiness.
I thank you. Fare you well.
Shakespeare now switches to the street, where the effects of the Duke's departure are being immediately felt.
How now? Which of your hips has the most profound sciatica?
Well, well, there's one yonder arrested and carried to prison was worth 5,000 of you all.
Who's that, I pray thee?
Marry, sir, that's Claudio, Signor Claudio.
Claudio to prison? 'Tis not so.
Nay, but I know 'tis so. I saw him arrested, saw him carried away, and which is more, within these 3 days, his head to be chopped off.
Art thou sure of this?
I am too sure of it, and it is for getting Madame Giulietta with child.
Believe me, this may be. He promised to meet me 2 hours since, and he was ever precise with promise-keeping. Away, let's go learn the truth of it.
Thus, what with the war, what with the sweat, what with the gallows, and what with poverty, I am custom shrunk. How now? What's the news with you?
Yonder man is carried to prison.
Well, what has he done?
A woman.
So? What's his offense?
Groping for trouts in a peculiar river.
What? Is there a maid with child by him?
No, but there's a woman with maid by him. You've not heard of the proclamation, have you?
What proclamation, man?
All houses in the suburbs of Vienna must be plucked down.
And what shall become of those in the city?
They shall stand for seed. They had gone down too, but that a wise burgher put in for them.
But shall all our houses of resort in the suburbs be pulled down?
To the ground, mistress.
Oh, here's a change indeed in the Commonwealth. What shall become of me?
Come, fear you not. Good counselors lack no clients. Though you change your place, you need not change your trade. I'll be your tapster still. Courage, there will be pity taken on you, you that have worn your eyes out almost in the service. You will be considered.
What's to do here, Thomas Tapster? Let's withdraw.
Here comes Signor Claudio, led by the provost to prison.
Fellow, why dost thou show me thus to the world? Bear me to prison where I am committed.
I do it not in evil disposition, but from Lord Angelo, by special charge.
Thus can the demigod authority make us pay down for our offense by weight the words of heaven. On whom it will, on whom it will not so, yet still 'tis just.
Why, how now, Claudio?
One word, good friend Lucio, a word with you.
100 if they'll do you any good.
Thus stands it with me. Upon a true contract I got possession of Giulietta's bed. You know the lady. She is fast my wife. Save that we do the denunciation lack of outward order. This we came not to, only for propagation of a dower remaining in the coffer of her friends, from whom we thought it meet to hide our love, till time had made them for us. But it chances, the stealth of our most mutual entertainment, with character too gross, is writ on Juliet.
With child, perhaps?
Unhappily even so. I pray thee, Lucio, do me this kind of service. This day my sister should the cloister enter, and there receive her approbation. Acquaint her with the danger of my state. implore her in my voice that she make friends to the strict deputy. Bid herself assay him.
I'll to her.
Thank you, good friend Lucio.
After he departs, the Duke steals away to a nearby monastery and adopts the costume of a monk. There he explains to a friar his intentions.
We have strict statutes and most biting laws, the needful bits and curbs to headstrong weeds, which for this 19 years we have let slip, even like an o'ergrown lion in a cave that goes not out to prey. Now, as fond fathers, having bound up the threatening twigs of birch, only to stick it in their children's sight, for terror not in use. In time the rod becomes more mocked than feared. So our decrees, dead to infliction, to themselves are dead, and liberty plucks justice by the nose. Since 'twas my fault to give the people scope, 'twould be my tyranny to strike and gall them for what I bid them to do. For we bid this be done when evil deeds have their permissive pass, and not the punishment. Therefore, I have on Angelo impose the office, who may, in the ambush of my name, strike home, and yet my nature, never in the fight, to do in slander.
So the Duke returns to Vienna in disguise to observe how Angelo exercises his new role as governor and judge.
And have you nuns no farther privileges?
Are not these large enough?
Yes, truly, I speak not as desiring more, but rather wishing a more strict restraint upon the sisterhood, the votarists of St. Clair.
Ho, peace be in this place.
Who's that which calls?
It is a man's voice. Gentle Isabella, turn you the key, and learn his business of him. You may, I may not. You are yet unsworn.
Peace and prosperity, who is that that calls?
Hail, virgin, if you be, as those cheek roses proclaim you are no less. Can you so stead me as bring me to the sight of Isabella, a novice in this place and the fair sister to her unhappy brother Claudio?
Why her unhappy brother, let me ask? The rather, for I now must make you know I am that Isabella and his sister.
Gentle and fair, your brother kindly greets you. Not to be weary with you, he's in prison.
Woe me, for what?
For that which, if myself might be his judge, he should receive his punishment in thanks. He hath got his friend with child.
Sir, make me not your story.
It is true. I would not, though 'tis my familiar sin with maids to seem the lapwing and to jest, tongue far from heart. Play with all virgins so.
Someone with child by him? My cousin Juliet.
She it is.
Oh, let him marry her.
This is the point. The Duke is very strangely gone from hence. Upon his place, and with full line of his authority, governs Lord Angelo, a man whose blood is very snowbroth. He, to give fear to use and liberty, which have for long run by the hideous law, as mice by men, by lions, hath picked out an act under whose heavy sense your brother's life falls into forfeit. He arrests him on it, and follows close the rigor of the statute to make him an example. All hope is gone unless you have the grace by your fair prayer to soften Angelo, and that's my pith of business twixt you and your poor brother.
Alas, what poor abilities in me to do him good?
Assay the power you have.
My power, alas, I doubt.
Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. Go to Lord Angelo, and let him learn to know when maidens sue, men give like gods. But when they weep and kneel, all their petitions are as freely theirs as they themselves would own them.
I'll see what I can do. Commend me to my brother. Soon at night I'll send him certain word of my success.
We must not make a scarecrow of the law, setting it up to fear the birds of prey, and let it keep one shape, till custom make it their perch and not their terror.
Aye, but yet let us be keen, and would rather cut a little than fall and bruise to death. Alas, this gentleman whom I would save had a most noble father. Let but your honor know whom I believe to be most straight in virtue, that in the working of your own affections, had time cohered with place and place with wishing, or that the resolute acting of your blood could have attained the effect of your own purpose, whether you had not sometime in your life erred in the point which you now come to censure him, and pulled the law down upon yourself.
'Tis one thing to be tempted, Aeschylus, another to fall. I not deny that the jury, passing on the prisoner's life, may in the sworn 12 have a thief or two guiltier than him they try. What's open made to justice, that justice seizes. What know the laws, that thieves do pass on thieves? 'Tis very pregnant. The jewel we find, we stoop and take it, because we see it. But what we do not see, we tread upon and never think of it. You may not so extenuate his offense, for I have had such faults, but rather tell me, when I that censure him do so offend, let mine own judgment patent out my death, and nothing come impartial. Sir, he must die.
Be it as your wisdom will.
Come, bring them away. If these be good people in a commonweal that do nothing but use their abuses in common houses, I know no law. Bring them away.
How now, sir? What's your name, and what's the matter?
If it please your honor, I am the poor duke's constable, and my name is Elbow. I do lean upon justice, sir, and do bring in here before your good honor 2 notorious benefactors.
Benefactors? Well, what benefactors are they? Are they not malefactors?
If it please your honor, I know not well what they are, but precise villains they are, that I am sure of, and void of all profanation in the world that good Christians ought to have.
This comes off well. Here's a wise officer.
What are you, sir?
He, sir, a tapster, sir, parcel bawd, one that serves a bad woman, whose house, sir, was, as they say, plucked down in the suburbs, and now she professes a hothouse, which I think is a very ill house, too.
How you know that?
My wife, sir, whom I detest before heaven and your honor, married, sir, by my wife, who, if she had been a woman cardinally given, might have been accused in fornication, adultery, and all uncleanliness there.
By the woman's means?
Aye, sir, by Mistress Overdone's means. But as she spit in his face, so she defied him.
Sir, if it please your honor, this is not so.
Prove it before these varlets here, thou honorable man, prove it.
Do you hear how she misplaces? Sir, she came in great with child, and longing, save your honor's reverence, for stewed prunes. Sir, but we had but 2 in the house, which at that very distance time stood, as it were, in a fruit dish, a dish of some 3 pence. Your honors have seen such dishes. They are not china dishes, but very, very good dishes. Go to, no matter what the dish, sir. No, indeed, sir, not of a pin. You are there in the right, but to the point. As I say, this Mistress Elbow, being, as I say, with child, and being great-bellied, and longing, as I said, for prunes, and having but 2 in the dishes, I said, Master Froth here, this very man, having eaten the rest, as I said, and as I say, paying for them very honestly, for as you know, Master Froth, I could not give you 3 pence again.
All this is true.
Why, very well then. Come, you are a tedious fool. To the purpose, what was done to Elbow's wife that he hath cause to complain of? Come me to what was done to her. Sir, your honor cannot come to that yet. No, sir, nor I mean it not. Sir, but you shall come to it by your honor's leave, and I beseech you, look into Master Froth here, sir, a man of 80 pounds a year, whose father died on Hallowmas. Was not Hallowmas, Master Froth?
All hell indeed.
This will last out a night in Russia, when nights are longest there. I'll take my leave and leave you to the hearing of the cause, hoping you'll find good cause to whip them all.
I think no less. Good morrow to your lordship. Now, sir, come on. What was done to Elbow's wife? Once, sir, there was nothing done to her once.
I beseech you, sir, ask him what this man did to my wife.
I beseech your honor, ask me. Well, sir, what did this gentleman to her? I beseech you, sir, look in this gentleman's face. Good Master Froth, look upon his honor. 'Tis for a good purpose. Doth your honor mark his face? Aye, sir, very well. Nay, I beseech you, mark it well. Well, I do so. Doth your honor see any harm in his face? Why, no. Well, I'll be supposed upon a book. His face is the worst thing about it. Good then. If his face be the worst thing about him, how could Master Froth do the constable's wife any harm? I would know that of your honor. He's in the right. Constable, what say you to that?
First, and it like you, the house is a respected house. Next, this is a respected fellow, and his mistress is a respected woman.
By this hand, sir, his wife is a more respected person than any of us all.
Varlet, thou liest. Thou liest, wicked varlet. The time has yet to come that she was ever respected with man, woman, or child.
Sir, she was respected with him before he married her. Which is the wiser here, justice or iniquity? Is this true?
O thou caitiff, O thou varlet, O thou wicked Hannibal! I respected with her before I was married to her. If ever I was respected with her, or she with me, let not your worship think me the poor duke's officer. Prove this, thou wicked Hannibal, or I'll have mine action of battery on thee.
If he took you a box of the ear, you might even have an action for slander.
Mary, I thank your good worship for it. What's your worship's pleasure I shall do with this wicked caitiff?
Truly, officer, because he hath some offenses in him, that thou wouldst discover, if thou couldst. Let him continue in his courses, till thou knowest what they are.
Mary, I thank your worship for it. Thou seest, thou wicked varlet, now what's come upon thee. Thou art to continue now, thou varlet, thou art to continue.
So what trade are you of, sir? A tapster, a poor widow's tapster. Your mistress's name? Mistress Overdone. Has she had more than one husband? 9, sir. Overdone by the last. 9. Now, come hither to me, Master Froth. Master Froth, I would not have you acquainted with tapsters. They will draw you, Master Froth, and you will hang them. Get you gone and let me hear no more of it.
I thank you, your worship. For my own part, I never come into any room in a tap house, but am drawn in.
Well, no more of it, Master Froth. Farewell. Come you hither, Master Tapster. What's your name, Master Tapster? Pompey. What else? Bum, sir. Oh. Troth, and the bum is the greatest thing about you. So that in the beastliest sense, you are Pompey the Great. Pompey, you are partly a bawd. Pompey, howsoever you color it in being a tapster, are you not? Come, tell me true. It shall be the better for you. Truly, sir, I am a poor fellow that would live. How would you live, Pompey? By being a bawd? Would that be your trade, Pompey? Is it a lawful trade? If the law would allow it, sir. But the law will not allow it. Pompey, nor shall it be allowed in Vienna. Does your worship mean to geld and splay all the youth of the city? No, Pompey. Truly, sir, in my poor opinion, they will to it then. If your worship will take order for the drabs and the knaves, you need not fear the bawds. Thank you, good Pompey. I advise you, let me not find you before me again upon any complaint whatsoever. No, not for dwelling where you do. If I do, Pompey, I shall beat you to your center and prove a shrewd Caesar to you. In plain dealing, Pompey, I shall have you whipped. So for the first time, Pompey, fare you well. I thank your worship for your good counsel, but I shall follow it as flesh and fortune shall determine. It grieves me for the death of Claudio, but there's no remedy.
Lord Angelo is severe.
It is but needful. Mercy is not itself, that oft looks so. Pardon is still the nurse of second woe, yet poor Claudio. There is no remedy. Come, sir.
Here is the sister of the man condemned, desires access to you.
Hath he a sister?
Ah, my good lord, a very virtuous maid, and to be shortly of a sisterhood, if not already.
Well, let her be admitted.
God save your honor.
Stay a little while. You're welcome. What's your will?
I am a woeful suitor to your honor. Please, but your honor, hear me.
Well, what's your suit?
There is a vice that most I do abhor, and most desire should meet the blow of justice, for which I would not plead, but that I must, for which I must not plead, but that I am at war twixt will and will not.
Well, the matter.
I have a brother is condemned to die. I do beseech you, let it be his fault, and not my brother.
Heaven give thee moving graces.
Condemn the fault and not the actor of it? Why, every fault's condemned ere it be done. Mine were the very cipher of a function to find the faults whose fine stands in records and let go by the actor.
Oh, just but severe law. I had a brother then. Heaven keep your honor.
Give it not o'er so. To him again entreat him. Kneel down before him. Hang upon his gown. You are too cold.
Must he
to him, I say.
Must he needs die?
Maiden, no remedy.
Yes, I do think that you might pardon him, and neither heaven nor man grieve at the mercy.
He's sentenced. 'Tis too late.
You are too cold.
Too late, why no, I that do speak a word may call it back again. Well, believe this, no ceremony that to great one longs, not the king's crown, nor the deputed sword, the marshal's truncheon, nor the judge's robe, become them with one half so good a grace as mercy does. If he had been as you, and you as he, you would have slipped like him, but he, like you, would not have been so stern.
Your brother is a forfeit of the law, and you but waste your words. It is the law, not I, condemned your brother. Were he my kinsman, brother, or my son, it should be thus with him. He must die tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, that's sudden. Spare him, spare him. He's not prepared for death. Even for our kitchens we kill the fowl of season. Shall we serve heaven with less respect than we do minister to our gross selves? Good, good, my lord, bethink you. Who is it that hath died for this offense? There's many that have committed it.
Aye, well said.
The law hath not been dead, though it has slept. Those many had not dared to do evil, if first that did the edict infringe had answered for his deed. Now 'tis awake, takes note of what is done, and like a prophet looks in a glass that shows what future evils, either new or by remissness new conceived, and so in progress to be hatched and born, are now to have no successive degrees, but ere they live, to end.
Yet show some pity.
I show it most of all when I show justice, for then I pity those I do not know, which a dismissed offense would after gall, and do him right that answering one foul wrong lives not to act another. Be satisfied, your brother dies tomorrow, be content.
So you must be the first that gives this sentence, and he that suffers. Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant.
That's well said.
Pray heaven she win him.
Why do you say this to me?
Because authority, though it errs like others, hath yet a kind of medicine in itself that skins the vice off the top. Go to your bosom, knock there, and ask your heart what it doth know that like my brother's fault, if it confess a natural guiltiness such as is his, let it not sound a thought upon your tongue against my brother's life.
She speaks, and 'tis such sense that my sense breeds with it. Fare you well.
Gentle, my lord, turn back.
I will bethink me. Come again tomorrow.
Hark how I'll bribe you. Good, my lord, turn back.
How bribe me?
I with such gifts that heaven shall share with you.
You had marred all else.
Not with fond shekels of the tested gold, or stones whose rates are either rich or poor, as fancy values them, but with true prayers, that shall be up in heaven and enter there ere sunrise. Prayers from preserved souls, from fasting maids whose mind are dedicate to nothing temporal.
Well, come to me tomorrow.
Go to, 'tis well, away.
Heaven keep your honor safe.
Amen. For I am that way going to temptation where prayers cross. From thee, even from thy virtue. What's this? What's this? Is this her fault or mine? The tempter or the tempted? Who sins most? Can it be that modesty may more portray our sense than woman's lightness? Having waste ground enough, shall we desire to raise the sanctuary and pitch our evils there? Oh, fie, fie, fie. What dost thou? What art thou, Angelo? Dost thou desire her foully for those things that make her good? Oh, let her brother live. Thieves for their robbery have authority when judges steal themselves. Most dangerous is that temptation that doth goad us on to sin in loving virtue. Never could the strumpet, with all her double vigor, art, and nature, once stir my temper. But this virtuous maid subdues me quite. Ever till now, when men were fond, I smiled and wondered how.
The scene moves to the next day.
When I would pray and think, I think and pray to several subjects. Heaven hath my empty words, while my invention, hearing not my tongue, anchors on Isabel. How now, fair maid?
I am come to know your pleasure.
That you might know it would much better please me than to demand what 'tis. Your brother cannot live.
Even so, heaven keep your honor.
Answer to this. I now, the voice of the recorded law, pronounce a sentence on your brother's life. Might there not be a charity in sin to save this brother's life?
Please you to do it. I'll take it as a peril to my soul. It's no sin at all, but charity.
Pleased you to do it at peril of your soul, were equal poise of sin and charity.
That I do beg his life? If it be a sin, heaven let me bear it. You granting of my suit, if that be sin, I'll make it in my morn prayer to have it added to the faults of mine, and nothing of your answer.
Nay, but hear me. Your sense pursues not mine. Either you are ignorant or seem so craftily, and that's not good. I'll speak more gross. Your brother is to die. You, his sister, finding yourself desired of such a person whose credit with the judge, or own great place, could fetch your brother from the manacles of the all-binding law, and that there were no earthly mean to save him, but that either you must lay down the treasures of your body to this supposed, or else let him suffer. What would you do?
As much for my poor brother as myself. That is, were I under the terms of death, the impression of keen whips I'd wear as rubies, and strip myself to death as to a bed that longing have been sick for, ere I yield up my body to shame.
Then must your brother die.
And 'twere the cheaper way. Better it were a brother died at once, than that a sister by redeeming him should die forever.
Were you not then as cruel as the sentence that you've slandered so?
Ignominy in ransom and free pardon are of two houses. Lawful mercy is nothing kin to foul redemption.
Plainly conceive. I love you.
My brother did love Juliet, and you tell me that he shall die for it?
He shall not, Isabel, if you give me love.
I know your virtue hath a license in it which seems a little fouler than it is, to pluck on others.
Believe me, on mine honor, my words express my purpose.
Ha! Little honor to be much believed, and most pernicious purpose. Seeming, I will proclaim thee, Angelo. Look for it. Sign me a present pardon for my brother, or with an outstretched throat I will tell the world aloud what man thou art.
Who will believe thee, Isabel? My unsoiled name, the austereness of my life, my vouch against you, my place in the state, will so your accusation overweigh that you shall stifle in your own report and smell of calumny. Answer me tomorrow, or by the affection that now guides me most, I'll prove a tyrant to him. As for you, say what you can, my false outweighs your true.
To whom shall I complain? Did I tell this, who would believe me? O perilous mouths that bear in them one and the self-same tongue, either of condemnation or of proof, bidding the law makes curtsy to their will, hooking both right and wrong to the appetite, to follow as it draws. I'll to my brother, though he hath fallen by prompture of the blood, yet hath he in him such a mind of honor, that had he 20 heads to tender down on 20 bloody blocks, he'd yield them up before his sister should her body stoop to such abhorrent pollution. I'll tell him yet of Angelo's request, and fit his mind to death for his soul's rest.
We go now to the prison where the Duke in disguise visits the prisoner Claudio.
So then, do you have hope of pardon from Lord Angelo?
The miserable have no other medicine but only hope. I've hoped to live and am prepared to die.
What hope? Whoops. What hope? He's here, grace and good company.
Who's there? Come in. The wish deserves a welcome.
Dear sir, ere long, I'll visit you again.
Most holy sir, I thank you.
My business is a word or two with Claudio.
And very welcome. Look, Signor, here's your sister.
Provost, a word with you, please.
As many as you may please.
Please. Bring me to hear them speak, where I may be concealed.
Now, sister, what's the comfort?
Why, as all good comforts are, most good indeed. Lord Angelo, having affairs to heaven, intends you for his swift ambassador, where you shall be in everlasting leisure. Therefore your best appointment make with speed. Tomorrow you set on.
Is there no remedy?
None but such remedy as to save a heart, to save a head, to cleave a heart in twain.
But is there any?
This outward sainted deputy is yet a devil. His filth within being cast, he would appear upon as deep as hell.
The Prinzy Angelo?
Oh, 'tis the cunning livery of hell, the damnedest body to invest and cover in prenzy guards. Dost thou think, Claudio, if I would yield him my virginity, thou mightst be freed?
Oh! Heavens, it cannot be!
Yes, he would give it thee from this rank offense, so to offend him still. This night's the time that I should do what I abhor to name, or else thou diest tomorrow.
Thou shalt not do it?
Oh, were it but my life! I'd throw it down for your deliverance as frankly as a pin.
Thanks, dear Isabel.
Be ready, Claudio, for your death tomorrow.
Yes. Has he affections in him that thus can make him bite the law by the nose when he would force it? Sure, it is no sin, or of the deadly seven, it is the least.
Which is the least?
If it were damnable, he being so wise, why would he for the momentary trick be perdurably fined? Oh, Isabel.
What says my brother?
Death is a fearful thing.
And shamed life a hateful.
Aye, but to die and go we know not where, to lie in cold obstruction and to rot, the sensible warm motion to become a kneaded clod, and the delighted spirit to bathe in fiery floods, or to reside in thrilling region of thick-ribbed ice, the weariest and most loathed worldly life that age, ache, penury, and imprisonment can lay on nature is a paradise to what we fear of death.
Alas, alas.
Sweet sister, let me live. What sin you do to save a brother's life, nature dispenses with the deed so far that it becomes a virtue.
Oh, you beast! You faithless coward! O dishonest wretch, wilt thou be made a man out of my vice? Is it not a kind of incest to take life from thine own sister's shame? I'll pray 1,000 prayers for thy death, not a word to save thee.
Nay, hear me, Isabella.
Oh, fie. Thy sin's accidental, not accidental, but a trade. Mercy to thee would prove itself a bawd. 'Tis best that thou diest quickly.
Oh, hear me, Isabella.
Vouchsafe a word, young sister, but one word with you.
Okay, here's where it gets complicated. The Duke concocts a plan. He instructs Isabella, Nancy Gertner, to agree to sleep with Angelo in exchange for a pardon for her brother. Isabella is to tell Angelo that she will meet him at night, in the dark, and briefly, because of her modesty. In her place, the Duke will arrange for Mariana, Jennifer Braceras, Angelo's ex-fiancé, to take her place. While exiting the prison, the Duke encounters Constable Elbel and Pompey, who is her prisoner for the second time.
What offense hath this man made you, sir?
Marry, sir, he hath offended the law. And, sir, we take him to be a thief, too. For we have found upon him, sir, a strange picklock, which we have sent to the deputy.
Fie, sirrah, a bawd, a wicked bawd. The evil that thou causest to be done, that is thy means to live. Go mend, go mend.
He must be for the deputy, sir. He has given him warning. The deputy cannot abide a whoremaster. If he be a whoremonger and comes before him, he were as good go a mile on his errand.
How now, noble Pompey? What at the wheels of Caesar? Art thou led in triumph? How doth my dear morsel thy mistress? Procure she still? Ha!
Troth, sir, she has eaten up all her beef, and she is herself in the tub.
Come your way, sir, come.
Go to kennel, Pompey, go. What news, friar, of the Duke?
I know none. Can you tell me of any?
It was a mad, fantastical trick of him to steal from the state and usurp the beggary he was never born to. Lord Angelo dukes it well in his absence. He puts transgression to it.
He does well at it.
A little more lenity to lechery would do no harm in him. Something too crabbed that way, friar.
It is too general a vice, and severity must cure it.
Yes, in good sooth, the vice is of a great kindred. It is well allied, but it is impossible to extirp it quite, friar, till eating and drinking be put down. They say this Angelo was not made by man and woman after this downright way of creation. Is it true, think you? Why, what a ruthless thing is this in him for the rebellion of a codpiece to take away the life of a man. Would the Duke that is absent have done this, ere he would have hanged a man for getting 100 bastards, he would have paid for the nursing 1,000. He had some feeling of the sport. He knew the service, and that instructed him to mercy.
I never heard the absent Duke much detected for women. He was not inclined in that way.
Oh, sir, you are deceived.
'Tis not possible. 'Tis not possible.
Who, not the Duke? Yes, you beggar of 50. And his use was to put a ducat in her clack dish. The Duke had crotchets in him. He would be drunk, too, and that, let me inform you.
You do him wrong, surely.
Sir, I was an inward of his.
I can hardly believe that, since you know not what of you speak.
Farewell, good friar. I prithee pray for me. The Duke, I say to thee again, would eat mutton on Fridays. He's not past it yet, and I say to thee, he would mouth with a beggar, though she smelt brown bread and garlic. Say that I said so. Farewell.
No might, nor greatness in mortality, can censure scape. Back-wounding calumny, the whitest virtue strikes. What king so strong can tie the gall up in the slanderous tongue?
The Duke, disguised as a friar, arranges a meeting between Mariana, remember she's Angelo's spurned fiancé, and Isabella. The Duke begs Isabella to get Mariana to agree to the plan, which, as you recall, is disguising herself as Isabella, going in the dark and sleeping with Angelo when he doesn't know it.
Welcome. Welcome. How agreed?
She'll take the enterprise upon her, father, if you advise it.
It is not only my consent, it is my entreaty, too.
Little have you to say. When you depart from him, but soft and low, remember now my brother.
Fear me not.
Nor, gentle daughter, fear you not at all. He is your husband on a pre-contract. To bring you thus together, 'tis no sin. Sith that the justice of your title to him doth flourish the deceit. Come, let us go. Our corns to reap, for yet our tithes to sow.
Okay, the plan, believe it or not, goes perfectly. Angelo sleeps with Mariana, thinking she is Isabella. But the Duke, disguised as the friar, learns from the provost that Angelo still intends to proceed with the execution of Claudia. The Duke then conspires with the provost and Pompey, who is now an executioner, to deliver to Angelo the head of a criminal in place of Claudia. This criminal happens to have the same hair and beard as Claudia. However, even that goes awry, as you'll see.
Sirrah, bring Barnardine hither.
Master Barnardine, you must rise and be hanged, Master Barnardine.
What ho, Barnardine?
A pox your throats. Who makes that noise there? What are you?
Your friend, sir, the hangman. You must be so good, sir, to rise and be put to death.
Away, you rogue, away. I am sleepy.
Tell him he must awake, and that quickly, too.
Pray, Master Barnardine, awake till you are executed and sleep afterwards.
Go in to him and fetch him out.
He is coming, sir, he is coming. I hear his straw rustling.
Is the axe upon the block, Sirrah?
Very ready, sir.
How now, Uphorson? What's the news with you?
Truly, sir, I would desire you to clap into your prayers. For look you, the warrants come.
You rogue, I have been drinking all night. I am not fitted for it.
Oh, the better, sir, for he that drinks all night and is hanged betimes in the morning may sleep the sounder all the next day.
Look you, sir, here comes your ghostly father. Do we jest now, think you?
Sir, induced by my charity and hearing how hastily you are to depart, I have come to advise you, comfort you, and pray with you.
Friar, not I. I have been drinking hard all night, and I will have more time to prepare me, or they shall beat me out my brains with billets. I will not consent to die this day, that's certain.
Oh, sir, you must, and therefore I beseech you, look forward to the journey on which you shall go.
I swear I will not die today for any man's persuasion.
Unfit to live or die. Oh, gravel heart. After him, fellows, bring him back.
Now, sir, how do you find the prisoner?
A creature unprepared, unmeet for death, and to transport him in the mind he is would be damnable.
Here in the prison, Father, there died this morning of a cruel fever one Ragozine, a most notorious pirate. A man of Claudio's years, his beard and head just of his color. What if we do omit this reprobate till he were well inclined, and satisfy the deputy with the visage of Ragozine, more like to Claudio?
Oh, 'tis an accident that heaven provides. Dispatch it presently. The hour draws on prefixed to Angelo. See to it that this is done, and according to command, while I persuade this rude wretch willingly to die.
This shall be done, good father, presently, but Barnardine must die this afternoon. And how shall we continue Claudio, to save me from the danger that might come if he were known to be alive?
Let this be done. Put them in separate holes, Barnardine and Claudio, ere twice the sun hath made his journey of greeting to the under generation you shall find your safety manifested.
I am your free dependent.
Quick, dispatch and send the head to Angelo. Once formed, we shall proceed with Angelo.
Peace, ho, be here.
The tongue of Isabella, she's come to know if yet her brother's pardon be come hither. But I will keep her ignorant of her good, to make her heavenly comforts of despair, when it is least expected.
Ho, by your leave.
Good morning to you, fair and gracious daughter.
The better, given me by so holy a man. Hath yet the deputy sent my brother's pardon?
He hath released him, Isabel, from the world. His head is off and sent to Angelo.
Nay, but it is not so.
It is no other. Show your wisdom, daughter, in your close patience.
I will to him and pluck out his eyes.
You shall not be admitted to his sight.
Unhappy Claudio, wretched Isabel, injurious world, most damned Angelo.
This not hurts him nor profits you a jot. Forbear it, therefore. Give your cause to heaven. Mark what I say. You shall find by every syllable a faithful verity. The Duke comes home tomorrow. Nay, dry your eyes. One of our convent and his confessor gives me this instance. Already he hath carried notice to Aeschylus and Angelo, who do prepare to meet him at the gates, there to give up their power. If you can, pace your wisdom, and you shall have your bosom on this wretch. Grace of the Duke, revenges to your heart, and general honor.
I am directed by you.
Angelo has delivered the head of Claudio, which is really the head of the dead pirate, Ragozine. Yes, this is actually in the script. And learns that the Duke is returning. All are summoned to the city gate for the return of the Duke.
My very worthy cousin fairly met, our old and faithful friend.
Excuse me, you're not the friar in this scene.
You have to be flexible. My very worthy cousin fairly met, our old and faithful friend, we are glad to see you.
Happy return be to your royal grace.
And many hearty thankings to you both. We have made inquiry of you, and we hear such goodness of your justice, that our soul cannot but yield forth to public thanks for running more requital.
Justice, O royal Duke, veil your regard upon a wronged, I would have fain said, a maid. O worthy prince, dishonor not your eye by throwing it on any other object, till you have heard me in my true complaint, and given me justice, 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 justice.
Relate your wrongs. In what? By whom? Be brief. Here is Lord Angelo, who shall give you justice. Reveal yourself to him.
My lord, her wits, I fear me, are not firm. She hath been a suitor to me for her brother, cut off by course of justice.
By course of justice?
And she will speak most bitterly and strange.
Most strange, but yet most truly will I speak. That Angelo's forsworn, is it not strange? That Angelo's a murderer, is it not strange? That Angelo is an adulterous thief, an hypocrite, a virgin violator, is not strange and strange?
Nay, it is 10 times strange.
Isabella recounts her story, but the Duke says he doesn't believe her and orders her away to prison. The Duke asks whether anyone can corroborate her story, and Isabella names the friar, who, as you know, is really the Duke. As Isabella is taken away, Mariana steps forward to corroborate the story with a veil, shielding her face. She approaches the Duke.
Let you show your face, and after speak.
Pardon, my lord. I will not show my face until my husband bid me.
What? Are you married?
My lord, I do confess. I ne'er was married, and I confess besides, I am no maid. I have known my husband, yet my husband knows not that he ever knew me.
He was drunk then, my lord. It can be no better.
For the benefit of silence. For the benefit of silence, were you so too?
Now I come to my lord, she that accuses him of fornication, in self-same manner doth accuse my husband, and charges him, my lord, with such a time, when all depose, I had him in my arms, with all the effect of love.
Charges she more than me?
Not that I know.
No, you say your husband.
Why just, my lord, and that is Angelo, who thinks he knows that he ne'er knew my body, but knows he thinks that he knew Isabella's.
This is a strange abuse. Let's see thy face.
My husband bids me, now I will unmask. This is the face, thou cruel Angelo, which once thou sworest was worth the looking on. This is the hand which with a vowed contract was fast belocked in mine. This is the body that took away the match from Isabel and did supply thee at thy garden house in her imagined person.
Know you this woman?
Carnally, she says.
Sir, no more from you.
Enough, my lord.
My lord, I must confess, I know this woman.
Noble prince, I am affianced this man's wife as strongly as words could make up vows. And, my good lord, but Tuesday last, in thy garden house, he knew me as a wife.
I did smile till now. Now, good my lord, give me the scope of justice. My patience here is touched. I do perceive these poor, informal women are no more but instruments of some more mightier member that sets them on. Let me have way, my lord, to find this practice out.
I, with my heart, and punish them to your height of pleasure. I for a while will leave you, but stir not till you have well determined upon these slanderers.
My lord will do it thoroughly. Call that same Isabel here once again. I would speak with her.
My lord, here comes the rascal I spoke of, here with the provost.
In very good time. Speak not you to him till we speak to you. Come, sir. Did you set these women on to slander Lord Angelo? They have confessed you did.
'Tis false.
How? How know you that?
Respect to your great place, and let the devil be sometime honored for his burning throne. Where is the Duke?
The Duke's in us, and we will hear you speak, but look that you speak justly.
Boldly at least, O poor souls. Come you to seek the lamb here of the fox? Good night to your redress. Is the Duke gone? Then is your cause gone too. The Duke's unjust, thus to retort your manifest appeal, and put your trial in the villain's mouth, which you come here to accuse.
Why, thou unreverend and unhallowed friar, isn't it enough that you've suborned these women to accuse this worthy man, but in foul mouth and in the witness of his proper ear, to call him a villain, and then to glance from him to call the Duke himself, to tax him with injustice? Slander to the state. Away with him to prison.
What can you vouch against him, Signor Lucio? Is this the man you did tell us of?
Aye, and do you remember what you said to the Duke?
Most notedly, sir.
Do you so, sir? And was the Duke a fleshmonger, a fool, and a coward, as you then reported him to be?
You must, sir, change places with me ere you make that my report. You indeed spoke so of him, and much more, much worse.
Oh, thou damnable fellow, did not I pluck thee by the nose for thy speeches?
I protest. I love the Duke as I love myself.
Hark how the villain would close now after his treasonable abuses.
Such a fellow should not be talked to withal. Away with him to prison. Where is the provost? Take him to prison. Lay bolts upon him. Let him speak no more.
Stay, sir. Stay a while.
What? He resists? Help him, Lucio.
Come, sir, come, sir, come, sir. Foh, sir, why, you bald-pated lying rascal. You must be hooded, must you? Show your knave's visage. With a pox to you, show your sheep-biting face, and be hanged an hour. Will it not off?
Oh.
Thou art the first knave that ever made a duke. Sneak not away, sir, for the friar and you must have a word anon. Lay hold on him. Lay hold on him.
This may prove worse than hanging.
Sir, by your leave, hast thou a word or wit or impotence that yet can do thy office? If thou hast, rely upon it till my tale be heard, and hold no longer out.
Oh, my dread lord, I should be guiltier than my guiltiness. To think I can be undiscernible when I perceive your grace, like power divine, hath looked upon my passes. Then, good prince, no longer session upon my shame, but let my trial be mine own confession. Immediate sentence and then sequent death is all the grace I beg.
Come hither, Mariana. Say, was thou ever contracted to this woman?
I was, my lord.
Go, take her, and marry her instantly.
Angelo and Mariana are led off by the provost to be married by a nearby friar.
My lord, I am more amazed at his dishonor than at the strangeness.
Come hither, Isabel. Your friar is now your prince, as I was then advertising and wholly to your business, not changing heart with habit. I am still attorneyed at your service.
Oh, give me pardon that I, your vassal, have employed and pained your unknown sovereignty.
You are pardoned, Isabel, and now, dear maid, be you as free to us. Your brother's death, I know, sits at your heart, and you may marvel why I obscured myself, laboring to save his life, and would not rather make rash remonstrance of my hidden power than let him be so lost. O most kind maid, it was the swift celerity of his death, which I did think with slower foot came on, that brained my purpose. But peace be with you, that life is better life, past fearing death, than that which lives to fear. Make it your comfort, so happy is your brother.
I do, my lord.
For this new married man approaching here, whose salt imagination yet hath wronged your well-defended honor, you must pardon for Mariana's sake. But, as he adjudged your brother, being criminal in double violation of sacred chastity and of promise breach, thereon dependent for your brother's life, the very mercy of the law cries out, most audible, even from his proper tongue, and Angelo for Claudio, death for death. Haste still pays haste, and leisure answers leisure. Like doth quit like, and measure still for measure. We do condemn thee to the very block where Claudio stooped to death and would like haste. Away with him!
Oh, my most gracious lord, I hope you will not mock me with a husband.
It is your husband mocks you with a husband, consenting to the safeguard of your honor. I thought your marriage fit, else imputation for that he knew you might reproach your life and choke your good to come. For his possessions, although by confiscation they are ours, we do instate and whittle you withal, to buy you a better husband.
Oh, my dear lord, I crave no other, nor no better man. Gentle, my liege.
You do but lose your labor. You lose your labor. Away with him to death.
Oh, my good lord, sweet Isabel, take my part. Lend me your knees, and all my life to come, I'll lend you all my life to do you service.
Against all sense you do importune her. Should she kneel down in mercy of this fact, her brother's ghost his paved bed would break, and take her hence in horror.
Isabel, sweet Isabel, do yet kneel by me. Hold up your hands, say nothing, I'll speak all. They say best men are molded out of faults, and for the most become much more the better. For being a little bad, so may my husband. Oh, Isabel, will you not lend a knee?
He dies for Claudio's death.
Most bounteous sir, look, if it please you, on this man condemned, as if my brother lived. I partly think a due sincerity governed his deeds, till he did not look on me, since it is so, let him not die. My brother had but justice, in that he did the thing for which he died. For Angelo, his act did not o'ertake his bad intent, and must be buried but as an intent that perished by the way. Thoughts are no subjects, intents but merely thoughts.
I'm sorry one so learned and so wise as you, Lord Angelo, have still appeared should slip so grossly, both in the heat of blood and lack of tempered judgment afterward.
I am sorry that such sorrow I procure, and so deep sticks it in my penitent heart that I crave death more willingly than mercy. 'Tis my deserving, and I do entreat it.
Having seen Isabella's willingness to show mercy to Angelo, the Duke reveals that her brother Claudio is indeed alive and well.
If he be like your brother, for his sake is he pardoned. And for your lovely sake, give me your hand and say, will you be mine? He is my brother too, but fitter time for that. By this Lord Angelo perceives he's safe. Methinks I see a quickening in his eye. Well, Angelo, your evil quits you well. Look that you love your wife, her worth yours. I find an apt remission in myself, and yet here's one in place I cannot pardon. You, sirrah, that knew me for a fool, a coward, one of all luxury, an ass, a madman. Wherein have I so deserved of you that you extol me thus?
Faith, my lord, I spoke it but according to the trick. If you will hang me for it, you may, but I had rather it would please you I might be whipped.
Whipped? Whipped first, sir, and then hanged. Taken to prison. See our pleasure herein executed. Dear Isabel, I have a motion which imparts your good, whereto, if you'll a willing ear incline, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine.
Jennifer Braceras, Dennis Saylor, Nancy Gertner, Wayne Budd, Doug Woodlock, Martha Coakley, Bill Lee, Nat Gordon, John Montgomery, Judy Collins, and Bob Cordy. We're now going to move the chairs, and I'll invite Dan Kornstein to come up, and we'll start the discussion. Is Jan Crawford Greenberg here? Oh, she made it. Wonderful. Come on out, Jan.
Well, thank you all for coming to this wonderful production, which you seem to enjoy. I know we all did in the audience. We're going to talk about some of the legal themes that all of you have touched on in this wonderful play. And if you look behind us, we see contemplation of justice and authority of law. And those are some of the things that I think we're going to be talking about. But I'm going to turn this over to Dan Kornstein, who has written extensively about the play and some of the legal themes that are involved in it. And in your writings, in your book, you say, Measure for Measure is a play guaranteed to wake judges from complacency and get them worrying about the fallible nature of human judgment. Why don't you take it from here, Dan?
Of all Shakespeare's 38 plays, this is the one that has more of the legal themes than any of the others. It may be less famous, and it's often paired with The Merchant of Venice. But just consider everything that we saw just in the excerpts. Now, Judge Wolf mentioned a few of the themes at the beginning. You have law and the enforcement of morals. How much should law be involved in regulating private morality? When does private morality become public morality? Questions of privacy. Respect for law. What happens when people don't respect the law, when laws are not enforced? We had a dead letter statute in the play, but we also have dead letter statutes in our society. I've often thought that the Bowers-Hardwick case and then the Texas-Lawrence case are cases that illustrate many of the themes that are in the play. Remember, those were the cases about homosexual acts in private and whether or not they should or should not be considered protected by the Constitution. Sexual harassment. We saw right on the stage in the play a perfect example of sexual harassment, and every time the play is performed, ever since the Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill hearings, that's the part of the play that gets strong audience reaction. You hear muttering, people snicker. Two theories of legal interpretation represented by the two statutes. On the one hand is strict enforcement of the law, and the other is equity, kind of a discretionary enforcement. Aeschylus in the play represents one, Angelo represents the other. We have a little essay on capital punishment, cruel and unusual punishment, what it means to await the death penalty. We have a nice discussion on what is the art of judging. That's supposed to be the theme tonight. What makes for a good judge? How does a good judge deal with these themes? And each of the characters plays a role in trying to illustrate these particular themes. Now, I'm sure the panel has a lot to say about it, and I think moderating this kind of a verbally facile and authoritative panel will be fascinating. But you in the audience will have things too, so throw it open to the floor. What does Claudio think about Claudio's role?
Claudio is relieved to be alive. I think the issue that probably strikes most of the judges on the panel is the sentencing of defendants in criminal cases. It's a thing that we do most often, at least those of us on the federal bench. It's an area in which there were no rules at all 20 years ago, or so few rules as to be almost meaningless. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, someone who committed a bank robbery might get 25 years in prison, might get probation, might get anywhere in between, and it was totally up to the whim or caprice of the district judge. The sentencing guidelines were passed. They have become tighter and tighter and over the years and stricter, or rather imposing harsher punishments. And this is where the rubber meets the road for most of us in terms of strict enforcement of a rule, which is really what the play is about, as opposed to doing mercy. It's a very difficult issue. Some people see it as quite simple. I think, frankly, it's quite difficult. And the judges, the federal judges, were not innocent in the process of the federal guidelines becoming stricter and the passage of mandatory minimum sentences. In some respects, they were like Chinese finger puzzles, in which the more judges struggled to get out of them, the tighter Congress tightened the loop. But I think for most of us, that's probably the chord that resonates most strongly.
And did you feel that as well?
But of course. I'm having a little trouble sliding from one role to the other here. Obviously, the notion that Claudio, the notion of what happens when you have general rules for complex social situations. So the rule that Claudio must die for a complex social situation is a problem, and also one that resonates with the public. The public, what was wonderful about this play is the extent to which the law became an ass, precisely because, the law became an ass, not to mention the rest of us, but precisely because it was out of proportion with the people's resonance of what justice was. And so this is sort of following along with what Dennis said, which is when the law is overly mechanistic and overly rigid and overly harsh, and doesn't apply proportionally, measure for measure, then it loses the legitimacy of the public, not to mention not being merciful.
Let me follow up on that with all of you who want to jump in. But what role should a judge have when the law seems unjust? And the judges, of course, get the cases that come to them. The prosecutors in our system have the discretion. What role should the judge play?
You asking me? Let him go.
This is one of the questions I posed at the outset. I was a judge more than 20 years ago and a prosecutor before that. If there was what appeared to be a harsh prosecution, but a crime, the consequences of that could be mitigated lawfully by the judge. And there was some play in the joints. But it generated perceptions and, in actuality, at times, unwarranted disparity. That's what Judge Saylor was talking about. In an effort to perfect the system, something that appears to be more objective is created, but it really transfers a great deal of discretion from judges who exercise it publicly and are neutral, will hear the two sides, to prosecutors, because once they bring the case, the judge's legitimate discretion may be little or none, depending on whether there's a mandatory minimum. I thought the play was somewhat ambiguous, and I got vexed with my friend the Duke because he didn't have a democracy in Vienna. He presumably made these laws. He made a law that said you could be executed for fornication, and then he didn't enforce it. And it wasn't clear to me whether Angelo had the discretion to prescribe any other sentence. There was a general admonition that that Angelo could be merciful if he wanted to be, but we don't know what the laws were here. So I throw it back to a certain extent on the audience. If you want to look at the current implications of this, we're fortunate we do live in a democracy, and there are some of us were regarded as ferocious prosecutors until we became judges, and now are wimps, at least according to politicians. But if this play is at all unsettling to you, perhaps you'll listen in a different way when people are politicking simply to be tough on crime, because we're forced to look a human being in the eyes. And increasingly, and I think this is positive, also remember the victims. I mean, Angelo does say that if he does justice, he's helping the victims because, of course, they're human too. But there's the potential for every human being to get into the courtroom, but not into some very general and inflexible law.
I'd like to hear from the chief prosecutor up here as to how she decides which laws are to be enforced and which laws are not.
Without my hat on. As you were just making those comments, I was thinking, of course, for death, the penalty is still, at least in Massachusetts, consistent. It's a minimum mandatory of life, and in many states it may be a death penalty. Part of what's going on here is not just is this too draconian and intractable, but is it the wrong penalty for what? So that evolves as we look at, we've moved beyond an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And in some states, for instance, in the South, not too long ago, you could get the death penalty for rape. And so as the courts evolved, what was appropriate or not, let me just speak from the prosecutor's point of view. There is some merit in having at least a consistency that says for X crime you will do Y punishment. Now, whether it becomes then unfairly applied, as this play explores, as it so often does, is where it gets complicated, because then you may say, well, we want the flexibility and the mercy of judges to make decisions, but that leads to judge shopping. And I'm speaking about the state courts, not the federal courts. That it would lead to judge shopping. It leads to the person who can get the better lawyer gets a better deal. There are all kinds of arguments you can make for saying that, you know, the law is the law and it should be consistent. None of us up here really believe that. And so the question is, how do you devise a system that is fair, is consistent, but also allows for the flexibility of individual circumstances? And the thing that I think is interesting about this play, as you look at the Duke, who leaves because he's created the system, but he's let it go to seed. He doesn't enforce the law, and he asks someone else to do it. He has someone else do his dirty work, then he doesn't like the results. And so then he comes back, and yet even in the end, he is not objective, nor is he merciful to poor Lucio, who has insulted him personally. And so the judge's own reactions here, Angelo is fair and consistent until he's tempted by Judge Gertner, Isabella. And so the judges are human, and they are subject to not being consistent by their own reactions.
I'd just like to speak to one thing that I think Shakespeare didn't address in this play. He did not have a three-branch government involved in Vienna. We do. And the real problem that we judges have is which branch is to make the decision first and foremost as to whether we ought to impose mercy or authority. And although some of us do from time to time think we have the right to make laws, we judges do not make laws, we interpret the law. And that is a matter that all of us have to keep in mind when considering a play such as this. Shakespeare left it unified. The Duke made the law and could enforce it as well. We can't.
Unitary executive.
Unitary.
Last year's subject.
Well, the Duke here actually is all three branches. He's making the laws, he's prosecuting, and he's judging. And I think it goes to Judge Wolf's comment that actually, I think in our system, of those three different points, the least transparent and the greatest amount of discretion exercised not transparently is with the prosecutors. The legislators do things in a relatively open form. The judges, by definition, do things in relatively open form. But the prosecutors make decisions with a broad range of discretion that the Duke has here still.
Now from the Duke. The question that I have is, in the instance where a law has been on the books, a harsh law indeed, but has been ignored, has not been enforced, what do judges do in an instance where that kind of a law is brought before him or her, where if there is a conviction, the result is a very, very harsh one, where the citizens have come to believe that if the law exists, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist? How do judges handle that kind of issue?
I think I should take it. Well, you raise something which Bill was raising too, which is when the laws are mandatory, the discretion slides to the prosecutor. Someone once said that discretion is hydraulic, where like a toothpaste tube, whatever you squeeze, it comes out somewhere else. So in a situation that you're talking about where there is a law, it's the opposite, it's not being enforced, be an interesting question about who makes the decision then about when to enforce it. How come Claudio was singled out? That's one of the things we're talking about. Everybody's doing it. How come he was singled out? Who made the decision? Presumably, Angelo made the decision, or someone made the decision, and why did he make the decision? What was the motivation? In what degree is it above board? What do judges do in a situation like that? I think you asked the questions. And Mark is right that before the sentencing guidelines, one could modulate a sentence if you thought that the prosecutor had overreached or there was some issue with respect to the prosecution. The sentencing guidelines limit that, but don't eliminate it.
I think it's a little more complicated than that. We are assuming that issues are presented to us in black and white, and they are never black and white. So the question as posed is rarely, if ever, the question that judges answer. So judges don't pick between one thing and another. They take into account a large ball of stuff that goes into any decision they make, whether it's in a criminal case or a civil case, but particularly in a criminal case. There are times when one's discretion is limited now in the federal court by virtue of these statutes that prescribe a penalty that may be no less than whatever the statute says, and as to which the court then has no discretion to impose a lower sentence. Those statutes are draconian. They are mostly in the context of drug and gun cases. And given other disparities in the statute, if a person sells 50 grams of crack cocaine and has a record of an earlier drug offense, he goes away for life. And the court has absolutely no discretion for less than that. So here the black and white becomes black and white, but mostly it is not.
I'd like to come back to the issue that Martha Coakley raised. You know, when they originally start discussing my good friend Wayne Budd, the Duke, as benevolent, that was originally the way I thought of him, was benevolent. As it turns out, though, he in many ways was the villain here because he walks out of town and leaves Angelo to enforce an unjust law. What's at issue here is that the laws were unjust, and therefore, if you believe in the rule of law, it puts a judge in a position of enforcing an unjust law. We see that all the time, and in particular, I noticed that Angelo says, when Nancy asks to show him some mercy, he says, I show it most of all when I show justice, for then I pity those I do not know. And so what this really boils down to is how do you have a system that's a rule of law when the law itself is profoundly unjust? I think the rubber hits the road a lot in issues when it's about morality and where there can be differences of opinion about morality. And that's when the mandatory minimum that we're all sort of railing against here, we have the greatest difficulty with.
I just want to piggyback on what Judge Saris just mentioned about the Duke skipping town and leaving other people to do his dirty work. I think that's something we actually see quite a bit in our society today, where you see politicians passing laws that they actually hope the courts will strike down. And we saw this with partial birth abortion, and we see it with a variety of cases, including the Violence Against Women Act and others, where senators have basically said in private conversations and sometimes publicly have been exposed to show their hand, and basically they put forward these laws and vote for them to appease some group of constituents and then hope that the judges will do their dirty work.
If I can go back to a question, it sounds like there's this dichotomy, having a rule or having discretion, and like discretion is what we want in the system. The problem with discretion, or with too much discretion, is what happens in real life if you have lots of discretion is Claudio gets probation. Okay, Claudio is a rich nobleman. Claudio comes in with a good lawyer and convinces the judge that he has this wonderful support network and a great education and so forth, and he gets probation. And the black and Hispanic defendants who have committed the same offense do time. Now, this is not just something that happened in the benighted regions of our country, you know, down there in the red states. This happened in Massachusetts. This happened all over the country before we had guidelines. It's one of the problems of discretion, is judges tend to react favorably to people who are like them, to react favorably to people who have education, prospects for the future, and so forth. And it's part of the problem of discretion. Part of the tension is it tends to produce racially disparate outcomes.
We actually have a situation in Massachusetts that raises a number of the issues presented by the play. I'm not sure how many people other than judges would be sensitive to it. And again, it's in the sentencing area. There are many things are violations of federal law and state law. For example, if you're a felon, you possess a firearm, or if you sell drugs. There are innumerable people who eventually end up before us who've been in the state courts many, many times and have not received a serious sentence. They might be like Claudio, thinking this may be criminal, but it's not something that will be punished or seriously punished. Then, through the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, some of them are brought before us. It's a small subset of those who might be eligible for these 10, 15, 20-year mandatory minimums, and they really feel sandbagged by the system because they've been in court and never got more than 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. I don't say that as a criticism of the state courts or the state system, because that's a system that is terribly underfunded. The federal government can print money so we can lock up as many people as we want. Seriously, it's the only difference I can think of. I think it would be a very valuable reform if people would invest more in the state law enforcement system that for more than 200 years was primarily regarded as responsible for dealing with violent crime, the most important kind of crime, that state judges had the resources to give swift and appropriate sentences that hopefully would send a deterrent effect. But people like Judge Saris on my right have been state court judges and now are federal judges. They give out sentences for the same offenses that are much, much longer, and it's just the cultures are different, the laws are different, but the primary thing I think is that the resources are different, and it would really revitalize federalism if the federal government, which can print that money, would do what it was doing, say, 30 years ago, and just giving more of it to state and local law enforcement so it had the resources to perform its traditional responsibilities in our federal system.
I should note that there are microphones on either side in the aisles, so if anyone from the audience would like to ask a question at any time, please feel free to come down and we'll let you ask it.
Let me take up what Judge Saylor was talking about in one form and what Judge Wolf is talking about in another, and that is the corrosive effect of disparities. Those of us who practiced in federal court, like Judge Gertner and Judge Wolf and me, before the 20-year epiphany, recognized that if you went into courtroom 1, the sentence would be 20 years, and if you went into courtroom 4, it would be 3 months. That's exceptionally corrosive. And similarly, that there is this disparity between state and local sentences. But ultimately, those are, to some degree, choices that the polity has made. The real core of the problem, I think, is one that is captured actually by the title of a book that Jennifer's father wrote. It's called The Fear of Judging. What's going on, what happened is that judges were feared because of a number of individual cases that became high headline cases and consequently led to the development of the sentencing guidelines in the federal court. You should understand the sentencing guidelines were a product of both the left and the right. The right wanted heavier sentences generally and thought that judges were wimps. The left thought that the sentences were too light for white-collar offenses. And frequently when you have strange bedfellows, you end up with unnatural acts, and that's what you ended up with with the sentencing guidelines. But there's another problem, and it's a much more defined problem. It's raised to some degree by Jan's question. What do judges do? One of the, I think, corrosive effects of the sentencing guidelines was to make of judges certified public accountants, or really kids in third grade arithmetic, adding up numbers to give this illusory sense that you had some precision to your sentences. I think for a number of judges, for all judges, there is the danger that once was described in describing a Supreme Court justice, that you end up using the sentencing guidelines more or less like a drunk uses a lamppost, not so much for illumination, but something to grab a hold of. And that is a corrosive effect on the process of judging itself. We live in a time in which every one of our institutions is subject to some degree of questioning. I think Jennifer put her finger on it, that the other branches of government have been very successful in dumping it all on the courts, where some of the resolution of these things should not be. But one of the places where the resolution of these important processes should be is in the sentencing. And in the sentencing itself, it is a very unique, very personal, and very difficult to describe. I read the transcript of the Supreme Court argument in the Claiborne and Rita case, which are pending. Yes, I'm sorry. I read the transcript of the oral argument in Rita and Claiborne, which were two of the Supreme Court cases on sentencing guidelines, only one of which will come down, I guess, this year. And what I was struck by is 9 appellate judges, only one of whom I believe has ever sentenced anyone, talking about one particular issue as if sentencing depended on one particular issue. It is not. It's a gestalt. You have this poor devil in front of you. You have the victims in front of you. And that is of the essence of judging. And so the danger of all of this, it seems to me, is that it is eviscerated to a fairly substantial extent what it has been to be a judge, and what it is that society traditionally has thought it means to be a judge.
May I make a comment? Sure. Someone out there. This is addressed to Attorney General Coakley. You commented on an eye for an eye as being a very, very strict judgment, which it was originally. Consistent with the question of how you interpret the law, an eye for an eye evolved over the ages as actually a limitation on punishment. It was not, you did not die. In fact, it was very rarely used for the death penalty. So as people became more, quote, civilized, quote, they began to realize that you did not, in fact, you never killed somebody for an eye. It didn't say that you killed for an eye. But that is very consistent with what you're talking about, because people came to realize that it is very, very difficult to have a specific penalty for every single crime.
Yes. I just wanted to address a question that Mr. Kelly brought up earlier to Attorney General Coakley, which was, how does a prosecutor decide which crimes to prosecute? Is it a matter of just evidence? Is it a matter of, a group of people commit the same crime? Why does, you prosecute one of them, give a plea deal to another one? What goes into who, if everyone does the crime, who does the time?
Good question. I think that question is answered somewhat differently on the state level. In my former life as a district attorney, if someone came in and said she'd been raped, then we tried to figure out who it was and if we had enough evidence. If we had a dead body, in some ways murders are the easiest cases. And by the way, Claudio didn't have any advantage of DNA testing in this play because he might have had a defense. We go after those things. A bank is robbed, we try and find the bank robbers. What's different, I think, in some of the things I do now as Attorney General and what many of the federal prosecutors do is target a group of people, a group of crimes, and try to make a case. And in the course of doing that, it often does involve discretion that doesn't get the kind of light of day that a sentence may get. And it may involve giving deals to people so they testify. It's why we have discovery rules about showing people who have cooperated because they may have a reason to lie, they may be biased, whatever the reason is. So it can get fairly complicated when you start to say, as prosecutors, we're going to target X because we want to send a message if we're looking at. In fact, on the state level, and Judge Wolf is correct, that the resources are so few that it often comes down to what we have before us. Do we have evidence? Do we have witnesses? Is there enough that we can make here? And I do recognize there's a lot of discretion involved what prosecutors do, but in the end, if the law says you can't speed on the highway and you are stopped for speeding, it is not a defense to say to the state trooper, you let those other 5 people go. Because there is something in the law that says we have the ability to provide for deterrence. What you cannot do is do that arbitrarily, capriciously, in a way that's unfair or discriminatory. But we can't possibly go after everybody who has violated the law. And so we do make those calls. Prosecutors, at least at the state level, are elected, so we have to answer for what we do and why we do it. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, everybody has a different opinion on. And so the approach that you take as a prosecutor, you assume is going to be subject to questioning. Why did you plead that case out? Why did you plea bargain something? We all take incredible heat for that, whether it is a murder of a child in the nanny case, or it is two guys who put guerrilla advertising around Boston and bring the whole city to a halt. Some people thought they should have gotten the death penalty, and others couldn't understand why they had been charged. So those kinds of cases really raise a lot of those issues that are difficult and complicated, I think.
Just one of the problems is on the state side and on the federal side. The criminal laws that we're enforcing are oftentimes chaotic, so that you can prosecute someone on the state side for possession of drugs in a schoolyard, mandatory minimum, possession of drugs not near a school. And the prosecutor oftentimes has the discretion as to how to charge things. On the federal side, the code is totally chaotic. You have someone charged with a drug offense, someone with what's called a telephone count. And that's where the problem comes in. As Dennis was saying, it's not just a question, and I think this play brings it out, it's not just a question of rules strictly applied to everyone, because then discretion oozes to the people who make the decision as to who to prosecute. And it's not just a question of wishy-washy discretion in judges. It is something in between, and we are constantly trying to find that medium.
I'm curious about is there any place for mercy in the courtroom?
Yes.
And how do you view it? What is mercy?
You talking to me? Surely someone else wants to answer.
All right. It's maybe the single most important thing going on in the courtroom, but it's all it's a subtext. It's an undercurrent. There's no guideline for mercy. It is a very difficult thing to sentence someone to prison, even if it's only for 6 months. Never mind 242 months, or some of the sentences that we give. Under the new post-Booker sentencing guidelines, I will impose a non-guideline sentence on basis that is little more than mercy, because it doesn't feel right. I'm sure my colleagues do the same thing. That's not a legal basis for it, but it is the human act that you are performing. You feel that the sentence is too long and you want to be, to some extent, merciful. If you're too merciful, you go down too far, you're violating some other principles, but reducing the sentence to the extent you can.
Felix Frankfurter once described his friend, the poet Robert Frost, as a poet of compassion but not passion. And I think there's that distinction that comes into play for a judge properly performing as well. Some compassion is sometimes justified for the defendant. We, because of the cases that are now being prosecuted in federal court, see an almost inexorable procession of people who were born to single mothers when their mothers were 15 years old and haven't really ever had a chance for a very decent life. And you can have some compassion for that, but your obligation to be faithful to the law, your obligation to be concerned about the victims or the pernicious effects of young people having guns or selling drugs has to come into play as well. And it goes to what Judge Woodlock was saying. There's no precise formula for it, but there's a combination of qualities that I think one would want in a judge. I'm proud to say that I know it's reflected in my colleagues on the stage, and it's something I mentioned in my opening question. I think judges who perform with an understanding that they are human, they too are fallible, who have this common sense that the judged and the judges are both human, but also that the victims are out there, or also that the people through their representatives have made these laws and generated these guidelines. It's a complex mix of things that operate differently in particular cases.
I would say, speaking from the perspective of an appellate court judge, where mercy is rarely what we get to do, we look, as we look at proceedings in the trial court, sentencings in particular, but all kinds of proceedings, for fairness, to ensure that the judge has given due consideration to the appropriate factors and has acted in a fair and balanced way. I suppose that's not mercy per se, but it is a way to ensure some standards and some basic considerations that everyone is entitled to when they go into a trial court.
This gentleman has been standing.
If the play is about how harshly a law should be enforced, and I always like to bring in my day's reading of the newspaper whenever I can, I think it's interesting that we currently have a judge trying to make up his mind about various aspects of his decision. I think we need to get to some specific cases, and I think the case that most relates to this play in today's news is Judge Reggie Walton, considering how harshly he will handle his decision. He will handle the decision about Scooter Libby. There apparently are a dozen famous legal scholars in today's Globe who are reported as coming from both the liberal and conservative traditions, like Alan Dershowitz and Robert Bork, are giving him advice and urging him to be less harsh, I think. I'd be fascinated if any members of the panel care to comment about this or indeed any other specific case other than the one in Measure for Measure.
I'll be foolish, but hopefully also judicious. None of us, I think, would express a view, a real specific view on a sentence in another case. Our own cases are very difficult. But I think I'd make a couple of general observations, because I was reading the newspaper while I was reading this case. And it cast as Angelo. I tried hard to see if I could find any redeeming feature in Angelo. I think I found possibly two, although they didn't outweigh the bad. One is, and it's been alluded to earlier, I went after the son of a nobleman. I didn't pick on one of the really helpless people. And the second thing I said at the beginning...
You went after them, too. But.
When I prosecuted somebody for fornication, I probably could have got Bill Lee and maybe even John Montgomery in there, but I went for the son of the nobleman. And the second thing that I was able to grasp for is I said at the beginning to Aeschylus, Doug Woodlock, you know, if I commit the same crime, I expect the same punishment. And I was still saying the same thing at the end. From what I can read in the newspapers, and I probably know better than anybody that the newspapers don't give you a reliable account of what's going on in the courtroom, Judge Walton sentenced Mr. Libby within the guidelines. In the guidelines are in strict guidelines are been heavily advocated by the present administration until control of Congress changed. There was real question about whether the limited discretion we now have was going to be restricted further. So, you know, Judge Walton was appointed, I believe, by President Bush. The present president. He is regarded as a judge he had been the equivalent of a state court judge in the District of Columbia. Everything's federal, but they have a superior court like our state superior court. He's generally known, you know, as somebody who's tough on a range of criminals. And I suspect if somebody studied it, he essentially performed in a way that would be consistent with the concept that justice should be blind, that he has guidelines, he has practices, he might be generally regarded as a tough sentencer, and he didn't make an exception for a powerful person who used to work in an administration that's usually advocating very severe sentences.
And the prosecutor pushed for a very stiff sentence, which reflects, I think, some of the things that we were talking about earlier. We're going to have time for one more question, so if you'd like to.
I sort of would like to come back to the issue of compassion. When you're talking about compassion, why we as a society and not just the judicial system think about compassion only for the person who is being judged and not as much for the victims? Most of the crimes are committed within the same class of people. And so chances are not only the accused, but the victim probably had, 15-year-old mother and have not chose to commit a crime. And in a sense, you sort of admitted to it that there have been numerous cases when they stood in front of a state court and only got a sentence of 3 months, and all of a sudden they got a sentence of many years for the same crime, which is they keep doing it over and over again. It also does not teach everybody else as strongly not to do it. It does not work for prevention very well. So my question is, why compassion is only one-sided most of the time?
Let me try to start. If I
Okay,
could.
and it's, the other issue that raises, we are hearing from victims and the families of victims more frequently in courtrooms, so maybe you could address that, some of the judges as well.
Well, that was precisely what
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's precisely what I was
Well,
going to say. When I began practicing law as a public defender 33, 34 years ago, victims were given fairly short shrift. They really were not viewed as anything other than sort of necessary witnesses. There certainly are cases in which victims do not feel that they have been given justice. That has improved remarkably in my 28, 29 years of practice. And I know the Attorney General is very experienced in this area as well.
Can I just address part of what you had to say? And there's a certain artificiality about our conversation. We're talking about how many months, how many years, as if that were the resolution of much more deep-seated societal problems. The real issue, the real problem, I think, is we have no follow-on after sentencing. The problem in the state courts is it's 3 months because they don't have enough room to put people into prisons, and they certainly aren't doing as much as could be done, because of money, to follow on with probation. We try to do some of that, but the most unhappy aspect, I suppose, is I pronounce a sentence. It reflects the moral condemnation of the community, I suppose. It reflects some sum of numbers, and then the guy disappears. And he disappears into the Bureau of Prisons, where he gets okay treatment. But ultimately, what we're really concerned about is don't come back here again. Don't do it again. Can we do something that will prevent you from doing it again so that there aren't more victims who are equally entitled to compassion out there not receiving it? That's the real fundamental problem, a limitation on our own power to do all of the things that should be done to try to advance rather than simply crystallize societal problems.
Well, I think that's right. Also, the question about, the federal judges responded to the questions about discretion versus guidelines in terms of the drug cases and the drug war. We see overwhelmingly drug cases in the drug war, and as to that, the victim is society. It's more abstract. It's not sort of a zero-sum game. In addition, so I think that we see this whole question, and as to that, I think this is something that Dennis Saylor said, the disparities, black and white, are enormous. Someone said now that based on the federal sentencing guidelines and the drug guidelines in particular, 1 out of every 4 mother of an African-American male needs to be told that her son will have some encounter with the criminal justice system as a result of the drug laws. 1 out of every 4. So the drug war distorts the sentencing picture entirely. You're talking about violent crime, And that's a different issue as to which the victim is very clear and very present. But I think we take Doug's point. Sentences in the federal bench and all around the country have gone up and up and up and up. We have to stop thinking about what makes us feel good and start thinking about what works, what makes sense as punishment to stop the problem, not just to vent our spleen.
And with that, I think that Dan is saying that I think we're supposed to go to 7, and we've already gone on a little longer. Should we call it a night?
I had one simple comment to help you round up this brilliant choice of Measure for Measure as your play. Here we are in Massachusetts, where fornication is a misdemeanor and adultery is a felony. Thank you very much.
Is that? Well, thank you all very much. And let's first of all give a round of applause to Dan Kelly, who did such a spectacular job getting all this. And then to the cast, who I think if they get tired of the law, other careers you know you can tap into. So thank you all so much. And thank you guys for coming.